Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode. Today, we're talking about Kant and his argument against casual sex. Now, of course, before going into the argument and delve into that, we have to establish some sort of background. However, giving you like a full background on whatever Kant said is just out of the scope of this video. It would be impossible. We need to discern between one critique and another, and we would need a very long time to do that. But certainly, we can start establishing a few firm points, a few pivots of our speech. The first of which would be the concept of a philosophical maxim according to Kant. There are maxims, Kant says, that they do not depend on our willingness. They do not depend on whether we like them or not. They just are what they are, and we have always to do them regardless of whether doing them makes us happy or makes us sad. They depend simply on the concept of right. We need then to forget what is good according to Mill and according to the utilitarianistic perspective. So in other words, good is not necessarily the best compromise we can achieve. It's not the best thing we can possibly do for the highest number of people. But it's something completely different. It is something that is so regardless of everything else. And so in other words, for Kant, we need to say that even intention plays a fundamental role in what is good. For instance, if I do something that is good with an ulterior motive, then I'm not doing the good for the sake of doing good, but I'm doing something that is good just for the sake of me getting, for instance, richer or me getting something out of it. Once we have established that, according to Kant, then we proceed by using a tool, and the philosophical tool that Kant uses is that of the maxim. But what is it that makes a maxim a maxim? The fact that I can make it universal, the fact that that is a law. In other words, whenever I say that it is a universal law not to lie, I'm saying that even if sometimes we would love to lie, even if this lie is a wild lie, in the end, we don't want to be surrounded by people who lie to us all the time. Why is this so important? It is so important because that makes it clear that then there's something wrong with lying, even if that is a wild lie, even if that lie doesn't have consequences. Mostly because just purely the fact of lying simply causes people to weaken their ties established through trust, and basically makes us wonder if there is really a connection with that person, what type of connection there is, and so on and so forth. In other words, undermines trust, intimacy, confidence, and sense of safety. According to Kant, moral dilemmas do not exist. In other words, if we have a killer knocking at our door, looking for a friend of ours, we are obliged by moral duty, again, whether we like it or not, to answer truthfully. But then in that situation, we would give away the information, the essential, pivotal information about where our friend is. And so in this kind of situation, we can choose to answer in a way that does not help the killer. So we can say, for instance, that instead of saying the friend is hiding in our back garden, we can say that we have seen him an hour ago at the supermarket, which is still true, but it would not help the killer to kill our friend. And so this is easily a slippery slope, because actually we can be even more radical and considering omission as a form of lie, as a form of lying to somebody. Yet, Kant says that that is acceptable, whereas a flat-out lie is not. It goes against the moral duty that we have to tell the truth. So when His Majesty, the Emperor of Prussia, asked Kant not to write about religion, Kant replied in a famous letter, "As your faithful subject, I will refrain myself from doing so," right? And so when Kant writes that kind of letter, he specifies "as your faithful subject." Now, Kant knows very well that the emperor is old, that his empire will not last for long, right? And so, in a certain sense, what he does is actually to put in practice whatever he has explained in theory. So he lies in a way that is very elegant, saying the truth, but at the same time a type of misleading truth, which is, by the way, exactly what, for instance, in recent and modern time, Bill Clinton seems to have done by saying that he never had a relationship with Monica Lewinsky. And we all know, also it seems allegedly, because I don't want to get a lawsuit, that they actually had some sort of relationship, and then we can read into that as much as we please. And so here, for a second, I will criticize Kant. And the reason behind my criticism is that I think that misleading truths are slippery slopes, and they can be very, very hurtful. People can use what you believe, the assumptions you have made, just for the sake of hurting you, and they might not be that evil, in the sense they might not hurt you, but they might hurt you indirectly because they want to get something out of you, right? So I think we should be slightly more radical than that. And what I found traumatic and traumatizing is that we teach our children values that then we have to reteach them when they're adults, because and we have to reshape them when they're adults, because then as adults we understand that there is a white lie and we can actually lie, but then as children we are taught not to lie, and then when we are adults we can afford ourselves the right to lie. However, if somebody lies back to us, then we consider that as a form of injustice. Sometimes that kind of misleading truth could actually be gaslighting, right? So we have to be very careful with what we do if we want to be morally conscious of what we do. Now, the question here is why or what is it in lying that is so disgraceful? And mainly we can kind of say that what is really bad in lying is this idea that you're not respecting in their entirety the individual, but that you're trying to get out of them some sort of advantage. You're trying to use them to achieve your own purpose. Maybe your purpose is not to get punished if you're a teenager, but again, you're trying to get an advantage, you're trying to get something out of that person, right? And you're not doing that with their consent. You are circumventing their authority or their person, to get something. Now, that is the same principle according to which Kant denies that casual sex is admissible on a moral ground. He says explicitly that sex cannot be casual and cannot be casual and considered moral at the same time. Basically, the idea here is that casual sex would be nothing else but using somebody to get some sort of advantage. Now, this advantage could be using that person for emotional purposes, using that person for company, using that person to get, sex or to get some pleasure, but not respecting their individuality. Even if you are in an open relationship, then and even if you don't feel you're being used, would that actually say that you're not used? Well, Kant says absolutely not. Prostitution, casual sex, sex with different people that you're not in a relationship with, all of that is hurting, damaging dignity. And now this very concept of dignity has also changed a bit, a lot if you like. Considering all the liberalistic type of economy and mentality we are in, everything has been liberalized, and so things have changed deeply from Kant's times. However, Kant keeps on saying that is not cool on a moral ground, that is not moral. Now, on this very point, I will not tend to disagree with Kant in the sense that I completely and fully agree, right? I think that sex is important. I think that sex is important as long as we consider it as such, and if we don't consider it as such, then we miss out on something that sex implies, right? And when we think that is important, we also have to kind of like understand and realize that it involves not only somebody's dignity but also somebody's integrity and individuality, right? And so whenever we have sex just for the sake of it, somehow that sex doesn't feel quite right or as good as other circumstances, right? And so if we rely upon that sort of evaluation, which again I believe it is shared, but it might be my bias, then we also need to agree with Kant. Does that sense of dignity, can that be placed in a superior position compared to, for instance, our individual choices? Well, Kant, and I would subscribe that view, says totally yes. I don't care if you feel, in other words, not used. The truth is you're being used, right? Whether you like it, it's a different kind of story, right? Whether you would agree with that concerns your freedom, your liberty. Would everybody be willing to agree with that? For instance, I don't know. Now, an argument, an objection has been moved by Sandel, professor of justice and moral philosophy in general at Harvard University. Sandel has said, well, Kant hasn't criticized the tradition. There was a tradition of his time of transplanting teeth, right? And we're substituting somebody's teeth, basically, in our mouth, and we're paying them to have their teeth. So isn't that also, meaning, isn't Kant criticizing that a red light? Doesn't that also tell us that he was not fully understanding the power of liberty, freedom, and individual choices? So Sandel supports that kind of idea. I will say that, first of all, there's a bunch of reasons why we can disagree. One would be tradition, probably the least that Kant would ever use, because he comes from the Enlightenment period, so a period where traditions were fought. But second of all, is transplanting teeth on the same ground as having sex with somebody? I would say absolutely not. And on that ground, that is, important to me to support Kant's position. But let's be done with me and let's focus on you. What do you guys think of this argument? What do you make out of Kant's position against casual sex and against prostitution? Is casual sex moral? Why do you think that? Please let me know. comment below. Of course, we're gonna talk some more next time with our new video, but in the meanwhile, please comment below, share your thoughts, leave a like to the video if you do like the video. You can also subscribe to the channel, which would be seriously appreciated, and of course, hit the notification bell so you will receive the update on every new video. Love you so much, and we'll talk some more next time. Bye!